thought this could be an interesting off-season type video, as this is becoming more and more of a discussed topic, which is AI-created content. Just thinking about it, wait a second, I make a living creating content. If the robots can create content at a much quicker pace, what does that mean? I'm going to be out of a job? Well, I was interested in it, and I figured, given the fact that I do have a unique perspective on this as someone who makes a living making videos, I at least have some idea of what makes for an interesting video and what makes for an uninteresting video, what makes for an interesting article and what makes for an uninteresting article. So I figured I could be have a unique perspective in talking about this. So I logged on to ChatGPT and I was just curious to see, could it make any articles that were actually worth reading? I hit my microphone right there, but could it make any articles that are actually worth reading? And so I asked some topics, such as, I asked it to write an article about whether or not Aaron Rodgers would be good in 2024, something that I made a video recently on. So I figured, okay, if I wanted to make some sort of article to accompany it, well, how could ChatGPT do? Well, first, you just notice that with all of these, there's just factual inaccuracies. Like right here, it says, in 2023, Rodgers showcased his enduring brilliance by leading his team to the playoffs and putting up impressive statistics despite facing tough competition. Goes on a little bit, but of course, Rodgers did not play in 2023. And in 2022, he didn't even lead his team to the playoffs. So not really sure where they're getting this from. If I had to guess, I'm assuming this is because it maybe still believes Rodgers is with the Packers, and since the Packers made the playoffs, that's why its brain is getting a little confused. That's probably it. But yeah, just something that, is not true. Also, this section, which is really just kind of guessing on what things might happen next year. So it's a section of the article that says potential changes, and then really the bottom part is the important part. Additionally, changes in coaching staff, team dynamics, or offensive strategies could influence Rodgers' effectiveness. Football is a team sport, and a quarterback's success often hinges on the support and coordination of his teammates. Any disruption or adjustments within the team could potentially impact Rodgers' ability to maintain his usual standard of play. It's just a weird kind of guessing that it's doing right there because, of course, Nathaniel Hackett is still the Jets offensive coordinator, so they haven't had a significant coaching change in that area. And while there are adjustments being made offensively, again, I think, Rodgers has never played with this Jets team. So the changes, it's just a weird thing to put. It feels like it's just guessing, essentially, which it kind of has to do. So if I were to give a review of the first article, it's not great. Again, a lot of what you see on these is kind of bland stuff like what I just showed you, of kind of just sort of almost attempting to be passable instead of actually attempting to write something good is typically my review of most of these articles, and that's certainly how I feel this one is. But hey, it's one article, right? So I wanted to move on and ask it a different one. Write an article on why you need an elite quarterback to win a Super Bowl. That was my prompt. Okay, simple enough. But again, ChatGPT just got a little confused here. This is the beginning of the article, and I'm not going to go through and read each part. I'm just, if you look at each paragraph heading, you're going to notice that the vast majority of these paragraphs aren't really about whether or not you need an elite quarterback to win a Super Bowl, but are instead just explaining what a good quarterback does, leadership and decision-making, playmaking ability. It then goes on to say offensive versatility and adaptability, and also impact on team dynamics. And then finally, the sixth paragraph, it finally gets to historical evidence and recent examples, which even this isn't a great paragraph. It just says, hey, there are some elite quarterbacks to win a Super Bowl, which still doesn't really answer the question of do you need one to be an elite quarterback or not, but at least it's kind of on topic here. But this is just one of the failings that an AI-generated software is going to have trying to write something for humans is, an inherent part of what I do when I make a video is I kind of try to know what my audience already knows. If for example, I'm making a video on, I don't know, why I think the Chiefs might win the Super Bowl in 2024. That's my video. If I were to spend 85% of the video just talking about Mahomes being great and Mahomes being awesome, okay, yes, that's an important thing to mention in the video, but we all know Mahomes is good. I might make a video, big part of the video about why Mahomes makes up for the mistakes of others and talk about it that way. But if I just showed 85% of Mahomes, hey, look at this great throw he made. Hey, look at this great throw he made. It'd be a boring video. For ChatGPT, that's a difficult thing for it to fully know, and so what it instead is going to do is kind of talk about all of it, and it thinks that when you have to argue about why an elite quarterback, you need an elite quarterback to win a Super Bowl, it thinks that spending most of the video on just explaining the good things that an elite quarterback does to a football team is important, even though we all know what that is. So that's just another example of maybe just an issue that it inherently has. But okay. I also have to mention, just another thing worth mentioning, that none of these paragraphs are particularly interesting. Again, I think that when people say AI is good or an AI thing is like well written, usually they just mean it's passable. Like it doesn't seem like it's a robot that wrote it. It seems like it's a human that wrote it, but not like a smart human who's a good writer. Just like a human, like it often, to be honest, feels like a middle school report where you had to get the paragraphs down. It doesn't feel like, anything interesting, in my opinion, when I read these things. But I was curious, and I said, okay, I don't think, just, looking at this, I don't think I could just, if I wanted to create a blog site and only use AI written articles, I don't think it would go very well. I don't think people would be very interested in reading that stuff. Even if you were to, have that, then have someone maybe comb over it and fix some of the issues, like the fact that it thinks that the Jets made the playoffs last year. Even if you fix those things, like I said, I think actually the structure is in some points the weakest part of this. So even if you're just trying to use it for a structure, even that doesn't seem to be very good. But does that mean it's a useless tool? Again, if we talk about for me, is there ways I can use ChatGPT to make my job easier? Well, I wanted to give it a shot. So first, I figured, hey, I'm making my, a top 100 players list that's coming out every day. So I figured, hey, what is ChatGPT's top 10 players? Maybe I could just, look at that and make sure I don't forget anybody. I don't know. It could be interesting. So I asked ChatGPT, who are the top 10 best players in football? And ChatGPT is firing off some hot takes. Okay, Mahomes at 1, yeah, sure, that makes sense. Aaron Donald at 2. Aaron Donald, of course, has retired, but ChatGPT is still a fan, I suppose. Aaron Rodgers at 3, and Devontae Adams at 4. Again, both of them still listed as Green Bay Packers players. Tyreek Hill, who's still listed as a Kansas City Chief. Derrick Henry, who's still listed as a member of the Tennessee Titans. Some hot takes. DeAndre Hopkins, again, still listed as an Arizona Cardinal player. And, I don't know if he's top 10, but hey, ChatGPT is a fan. So, okay, there you go. So if I'm looking for ChatGPT to give me a top 10 list, maybe it's not going to go particularly well. But okay, that doesn't mean that there aren't ways that ChatGPT could still help me out. I decided to ask, what are some good ideas for NFL-related YouTube videos? Hey, that's what I do here, right? I could use a good idea. Part of my job every week is just coming up with a bunch of ideas of, what could work. So maybe if a computer program could do this for me, or at least help me out in the brainstorming process, this feels like something that when I entered this in, I legitimately thought maybe this could be a helpful tool for me. However, it's a lot of stuff like this, like game highlights and analysis, which, okay, yeah, sure. Number 5 on the list was NFL draft analysis. Oh, what a great idea. Never would have thought of that on my own, of making some analysis on the draft. And this one was my favorite. Behind the scenes and player interviews. Oh, great idea, ChatGPT. Why didn't I think about doing some player interviews? Yeah, thank you, ChatGPT, for letting me know about that. Well, okay, that didn't fully work out, but part of this might be user error, right? At the end of the day, ChatGPT is in many ways a search engine, and just like how with Google, there is kind of sometimes an art to making sure you search the thing that you want to search to get what you want. ChatGPT could be something similar, so I decided to kind of fiddle around with it a little bit. I asked ChatGPT, what are some good topics for NFL-related YouTube videos? So I changed it to topics instead of ideas. I thought that might get a little bit more specific, and it didn't really. Once again, it's like general stuff like game recaps and analysis, very basic, like, hey, these are the types of YouTube videos that you might see out there. So, okay, not particularly helpful, but, I don't really need this kind of stuff. Maybe a way to phrase it could be, who are some NFL players that I could make an interesting YouTube video on? Okay, simple enough, right? Well, again, this is the list. These are the top 6 players on this list. You have 3 of them who are no longer in the NFL. Tom Brady, Aaron Donald, and J.J. Watt have all retired. And just, looking at it, it doesn't seem like they're saying, hey, you can make a video on a guy who's retired but is still really good. It feels like ChatGPT just hasn't yet realized that they're retired. Also, number 6, Russell Wilson, again, says he's still for the Seahawks, and if you read the little description that it put in there, it doesn't seem like it's saying, hey, is he still good, but instead more so like, oh no, he is still good. You should make a video on why he's so good, which is not really the case anymore. They also threw DeAndre Hopkins on this list as well. So ChatGPT, again, just a big fan of DeAndre Hopkins. Okay, maybe I'll make you your DeAndre Hopkins video, ChatGPT. Although, again, the way that it's describing it makes it seem like, oh, because he's so good, he would make for an interesting video instead of the real, I think, if I were to make a video, it would probably be more so, is he still just as elite as he ever has been? That would be more of the question than, just acting like he's still at the top of his game, because I don't know if that's fully true, even though I still think he's good. So then I phrased it this way. Who are some lesser known NFL players that I could make an interesting video on? I thought this could maybe get, because again, oh, what a great idea, ChatGPT, a Patrick Mahomes video. Never would have thought of that, right? So, okay, let me ask it something like this. Who are some lesser known players? ChatGPT wrote Justin Jefferson, and then TJ Watt, refused to elaborate on TJ Watt, and then just ended the list. I didn't cut this off. This is all it gave me for this. So, not super helpful there, ChatGPT. So as a whole, we are here, and the only thing that I can really look at that I would say, like, I can see this being helpful with from this point forward is if you were running a company and legitimately didn't care about the product you were pushing out and were just trying to create like a content farm. But even in that scenario, people would eventually notice, oh, this company only pushes out like horribly written videos or horribly written articles. I'm not interested, and would move on. So like even that, I don't think would go particularly well. So as a whole, this is not something that I look at as, as of right now, really anything that could take my job or take your job if you're a writer doing this stuff. Now, I think a lot of people kind of say, okay, well, it's not there yet, right? Maybe it'll get there eventually. It's just not there now. Even that, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about this, because I should probably give an explanation for what ChatGPT actually is, what this AI stuff actually is, because I think that's something that people maybe don't fully get. But ChatGPT is essentially a better search engine. It kind of scans the web for answers on certain things. That's essentially how it operates, and it's in a legal gray area when it comes to creative stuff, to the point where some companies have actively blocked it from being able to scan their what they're doing. I believe, from my understanding, it even scans YouTube videos. So as of right now, me creating this content, ChatGPT can then use for like future things, or at least AI companies can use for for their like research or their their scanning of data. Like I said, this is a gray area. They claim it falls under fair use. I don't know if that's fully fair to say, but I actually don't know if I agree. Quite frankly, I just don't think that that's fair at all, that if someone else writes an article on something and spends a lot of time, ChatGPT can just take it without giving any credit to the original like person who wrote the article. That just doesn't sit right with me. I would say, though, that from my understanding, when it comes to like, the writing creative stuff, I don't think it does a very good job. But when it comes to like math related stuff or even like language related stuff, I've heard people say that it's actually pretty good there. Like, I know people in my life who are, big into math, like that's what they do for a living, and they both swear by ChatGPT and say it's a really valuable tool. And that makes sense to me, because that's there's a right and wrong answer to a lot of that stuff. Whereas, again, creative stuff, it's a lot more tricky than that. And when people say, well, creative stuff just isn't there yet, it'll get there, it's just not quite there yet. Again, I kind of have to say, well, what can allow it to get better? There isn't that much more it can scan to get more information, and I think it's still going to suffer these same problems. I still just think at the end of the day, it's going to essentially be a creation of other people's ideas, and usually the more bland ideas, because that's what it has access to, and that's what it's going to, that's what it's going to see more frequently. So I kind of want to end this video by actually reading an entire ChatGPT article, and it's going to be a little boring, but again, that's part of my point in all of this, because the one thing I thought of, and the one way I could see this actually being used as a tool, is game recaps, because for a game recap, a writer doesn't have to give like opinions on stuff. A writer doesn't have to formulate an argument too much. So I thought that could be something that could happen. So that's what I did. I decided to say, I asked ChatGPT, could it write a recap on Super Bowl 55 between the Buccaneers and the Chiefs? So this is that article. Super Bowl LV recap, Tampa Bay Buccaneers versus Kansas City Chiefs. Super Bowl LV, held on February 7th, 2021 at Raymond James Stadium in Tampa, Florida, featured a highly anticipated matchup between the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Kansas City Chiefs. The game marked a historic occasion as the Buccaneers became the first team in NFL history to play a Super Bowl in their home stadium. First half, the Buccaneers, led by veteran quarterback Tom Brady, got off to a strong start with a balanced offensive attack. Brady, known for his Super Bowl experience and clutch performances, quickly connected with his favorite targets, including wide receiver Mike Evans and tight end Rob Gronkowski. The Buccaneers defense, anchored by linebacker Devin White and defensive lineman Shaquille Barrett, applied relentless pressure on Chiefs quarterback Patrick Mahomes. In contrast, the Chiefs struggled to find a rhythm offensively. Mahomes, despite his agility and ability to extend plays, faced constant pressure from Buccaneers' defensive line. The Chiefs' offensive line, weakened by injuries and absences, struggled to protect Mahomes and opened up running lanes for the ground game. The first half ended with the Buccaneers holding a commanding 21-6 lead, highlighted by Brady's 3 touchdown passes. Halftime show. The halftime show featured a memorable performance by The Weeknd, who delivered a high-energy performance featuring hits like Blinding Lights. The visually stunning production entertained viewers worldwide, setting the stage for the second half of the game. This is the final part of the article. Second half, the Chiefs entered the second half determined to make a comeback. Mahomes, known for his ability to orchestrate explosive offensive drives, attempted to rally his team. However, the Buccaneers defense continued to dominate, preventing the Chiefs from scoring touchdowns and forcing them to settle for field goals. Brady, in his typical composed fashion, managed the game effectively, making crucial completions and avoiding turnovers. The Buccaneers' offense maintained possession and ate up the clock, limiting the Chiefs' opportunities to narrow the score gap. Final score. Despite a valiant effort by Mahomes and the Chiefs in the second half, the Buccaneers' early lead proved insurmountable. The game concluded with a final score of 31-9 in favor of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, securing their second Super Bowl title in franchise history. Tom Brady, at age 43, earned his record-extending 7th Super Bowl ring and was named the game's MVP for his exceptional performance, completing 21 of 29 passes for 201 yards and 3 touchdowns. Conclusion. Super Bowl LV will be remembered for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers' dominant performance on both sides of the ball and Tom Brady's remarkable achievement in leading his new team to championship glory. The game highlighted the importance of experience, preparation, and execution in the quest for football's ultimate prize. As the NFL looks ahead to future seasons, the legacy of Super Bowl LV will undoubtedly serve as an inspiration and benchmark for teams striving for excellence on the grandest stage of professional football. That's one other thing I've noticed at the end is that it feels like it gets very sappy at the end of all these articles, or especially I tried it for some writing stuff, and it's not very good there either, but it always has those very sappy endings to it as well. Again, this is kind of my whole point with something like ChatGPT. This is, I would say, a passable article. If you read this, you wouldn't sit here and say, oh, that's definitely AI. Oh my God, so many things are poor about it, right? I mean, okay, there was I think saying the Buccaneers got off to a hot start offensively isn't really true. They actually had a few tough drives early on before finally getting something going. I believe that was at the end of the first quarter, so not exactly true. There's little things like that, but for the most part, what it said was true. It didn't have any glaring, mishaps like saying that, Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams still play for the Packers. There's a couple of things that I would probably say are questionable about it, right? Like, for example, not bringing up that this is during COVID, or not bringing up the Chiefs' offensive line injuries, which is such an important part of that Super Bowl. How do you not even talk about it? But my main thing is this is just boring. It's just not an interesting read, right? So even this, which I chose because in my opinion it's a good example of ChatGPT, this worked in my opinion, I'm still sitting here not interested in it at all. Like, I imagine that I'm genuinely expecting that a decent chunk of people watching this video will have clicked off by now because they were bored hearing me read this article. There's not really opinions going on. It's not like formulated in any good, great narrative other than just kind of the order of the events that transpired. To be honest, when I see these, even at AI's best, it reads like I said earlier, a middle schooler who's just trying to finish a report. And to be clear, I think middle schoolers can write better than this. I'm just saying it's a middle schooler who isn't interested in having to write a Super Bowl 55 recap and is still getting forced to do it. And this is what they come up with. I mean, it feels like just, sometimes it does feel like the words are being used just to kind of extend the paragraph. Again, there's a lot of just explaining events that transpired, and a lot of them aren't even the most important events that transpired. So as a whole, can ChatGPT take our jobs? I'm not worried just yet. As of right now, at the very least, I think the only people who should be worried about losing their jobs are if you're really bad at writing and you write a lot of boring stuff anyway. That's the only real people I could see it surpassing as of right now. And I just don't know how much better it can get. Maybe it can get better. I'm not going to sit here and say it for sure it can't. I know people will kind of make the argument of, well, look at all the, look at history and see that, there's been plenty of times where people wrote off a new technology and then it turned out to be a really big deal, like the internet, for example. Great example. That's totally possible, and so because of that, like, AI is still something I'm going to pay attention to, but it's also worth mentioning, like, we've had a lot of, like, oh, this is going to be the next internet thing, that just hasn't happened, right? We've been waiting for the next major step on the internet for quite some time now, and a lot of times they've been things that haven't really been the case, like cryptocurrency or NFTs that haven't really fully been what people thought they would be. We recently saw with the metaverse, right? Anytime there's something like this, there is a gold rush to try and, for a lot of companies, try and get as much money out of this as they can. Oh my God, we can't miss this or we're going to be in trouble. When the reality is that usually, these things are not quite as good as they're getting hyped up to be. So again, to kind of put a bow on all of this, as of right now, AI creative projects are at their absolute best passable but very boring, and at their worst just complete gibberish. It's something that can be successful for other fields that I do not work in, so definitely is something to fiddle around with. It is free. Search ChatGPT and ask it stuff. Like, it's interesting there. But if you were hopeful that you could just enter in some topics into ChatGPT, just read off a prompt into a microphone and then have that be your own YouTube video, unfortunately, I don't think it's going to go particularly well. But yeah, those are my thoughts on it. And all I have to say is hopefully this YouTube video will undoubtedly serve as an inspiration and benchmark for YouTubers striving for excellence on the YouTube page for years to come. Thank you to everybody for sticking around and watching this lengthy video. Hope you enjoyed it. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Always love hearing from you. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.